The Kissing Booth. Chapter 27. He put the helmet on for me, clipping it in place. I had a sense of déjà vu of when I'd first ridden the bike, and smiled at the memory. Then he swung himself over the motorbike, which looked even more monstrous and intimidating than I remembered, and gave me a hand. I put my arms around his waist, cautiously. My palms were sweating. I could hear my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Wherever we're going, it had better be worth it. Was it too late to back out? Tell him we'd go another time? Noah, I changed my mind. I really don't. He revved the engine, the bike roaring to life all of a sudden. I jumped, let out a little squeak, and held on as tight as I could. I felt his body rumble with a chuckle, and before I could tell him again I'd changed my mind, he sped off down the street. I didn't even open my eyes. The wind slapped my bare arms and legs, and I knew I'd have goosebumps all over when we got off. At least my hair was all tucked inside the helmet, so it wouldn't be a total mess when I took it off. But I didn't want to look at everything blurring past. I heard a horn blare, most likely at us, but I still kept my eyes squeezed tight shut and clung to Noah. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I love him. I love him. I love him. I hardly even noticed when we stopped. Everything suddenly went silent, and it was only when Noah unhooked my arms from around him that I dared to open my eyes. We were at the bottom of a hill by a park outside of town. I used to come to the park in the summer with Lee, since they had a public pool here that was open in the summer. It made a nice change of scenery from his backyard. Noah got off the bike first, and then pulled my helmet off gently. I just glared at him, and he chuckled. It wasn't that bad. Come on, admit it, he said, smoothing down my flyaway hair. I think I might throw up. I wasn't even exaggerating much. He laughed again, steadying me as I climbed off the damn thing. My legs felt like jello and almost gave way beneath me. Linking his fingers through mine, Noah opened up the seat of the bike, taking out a blanket, the kind you'd have for a picnic. He tossed it over his shoulder and spoke before I could ask what the blanket was for. Surely, I thought, we weren't on the verge of a breakup. It didn't make sense. Come on, we don't want to be late. Where are we going? I asked. He was already walking up the hill, towing me along too. Noah, where are we going? Now who's the impatient one? He laughed, squeezing my hand. It didn't take us long to reach the top, and when we did, he let go of my hand and spread the blanket out on the grass underneath a big oak tree that leaned over at an angle, its branches hanging down low enough that the leaves grazed the top of my head. He sat on the blanket, patting the space next to him. Come on, then. Frowning a little in confusion, I slowly sat down next to him. Then I saw what we'd come for. This place overlooked half the city, and you could see the beaches and the ocean. The view of the city alone was pretty astounding, with its twinkling lights, but with the sunset, the sky was stained red, and the thin bands of cloud were pink and silver. It was beautiful. The sunset reflected in the sea, too, turning the dark blue water red and yellow and pink. It was breathtaking. The sun looked so big, dipping down behind the skyline of the city. It was quiet, too. There was no noise from the city or from the surf on the beach, just the breeze rustling the leaves over our heads. Wow, I breathed. There really wasn't any other word for it. Just wow. I know. Told you you'd like it. Noah bumped my shoulder, and when I tore my eyes away from the landscape to look at him, he was smiling at me, one of his real smiles that showed his dimple and made his eyes light up even more. It's amazing, I said quietly. Yeah, you are, Noah murmured. I was silent for a second before I laughed. You are so cheesy. You love it, really, he teased, bumping my shoulder again. I can't believe you actually brought me here to watch the sunset. It's so romantic. I told you, Elle. I'm going to do things right this time, and I knew you'd like it. You are just that kind of a girl. And it's not even over yet. Give it 15-20 minutes, he said after checking his watch. What happens then? He chuckled, avoiding answering, and with his free hand tilted my face to kiss me. It started out as another soft kiss that made my heart melt, but soon enough I had my fingers knotted in his hair, and his hands were on my back, holding me tight. I didn't know how long we stayed like that, but at some point he laid me down and was half on top of me, still kissing me. There were sparks dancing through me like crazy, and my head felt ready to explode. I was kissing him like a drowning person, like he was my heir and he was kissing me back in just the same way. It was like this should be a thing of fairy tales, but it wasn't. This was real, and it was all happening to me. Hell, even the fireworks between us when we kissed seemed real, like they were exploding right over my head. I broke the kiss, and Noah sat up slightly, both of us looking out at the view. The sky was darker now, not pitch black or even icky blue, but it was still dark enough. The glittering rainbows of fireworks were just disappearing, fading away. Another few went up, exploding and whistling, then bursting out into a pattern of green and gold, and blue and pink. Oh my gosh, I breathed. There's a display down on the beach, he told me. I forgot what it was for, but there was some event and... yeah. Wow. First the sunset, now this? Another few fireworks went off, splashing over the water in a hypnotic burst of color. What's the occasion? For all the cute gestures, I mean. Elle, don't call me cute, please. I rolled my eyes. Just answer the question. He shrugged. I don't know. Taking you to the dance and stuff like that was me trying to say sorry. But sometimes saying sorry doesn't really mean a lot. And you deserve a hell of a lot better than that. Than me. And man, I hate all this emotional shit. But I'm going to say it all anyway, because you deserve that much. He gulped, and I lifted my head off his shoulder to look at him. Noah, I whispered. But I don't think he even heard me properly. No, just let me say this, Elle. But he chewed on his lower lip, looking more like a scared little boy than badass Flynn. The next second, his lips crashed down on mine so suddenly and so roughly it knocked the breath out of me. I was too surprised to kiss him back, only recovering when he decided to pull away. The fireworks were still cracking in the background, throwing colored flashes of light across his face. I love you, Elle, he told me, brushing some hair off my face. I could only breathe. I couldn't say anything, and my mind went entirely blank for a moment. My heart alternated between doing somersaults and skipping a beat. Breathe, I told myself. Breathe. Noah blinked at me. Say something, Elle. I just laid everything on the line, dignity included, and you were not saying anything. I laughed and practically tackled him, throwing my arms around his neck and kissing him. He hugged me back, his lips responding, and his tongue slipping inside my mouth. When we broke apart a minute or so later, he just leaned his forehead on mine, those captivating eyes boring into mine. A bright purple firework exploded across the sky behind him. I love you, I whispered. He chuckled, and I heard the relief in his voice. Well, thank God for that. I thought I'd scared you off for a minute. I laughed, shaking my head against his. Nope. Still here. Good. He gave me a brief peck on the lips. Then he wrapped his arms around me, and I rested my head on his shoulder again. The firework display from the beach carried on, lighting up the darkening sky, while I was happy sitting on the top of a hill in Noah's arms. He said he loved me. He loves me. He loves me. I'm in love with my best friend's older brother, and he loves me back. He loves me. Noah? Yeah? What are we going to do? With you going off to college, I mean. He sighed and rested his head on top of mine. His fingers played with the ends of my hair. I don't know, Elle. I don't want to leave you either. But it's Harvard, you know. Harvard. I know. I love you, he murmured. I don't know what I'm going to do. Do your parents know about us now? I asked, curious. He nodded. Yeah, I told them once they'd calmed down. Then he sighed again. You should have seen how mad they were at me. Even Lee got out of the house. Remember what they were like to you two after you guys started that food fight in the 8th grade? Imagine that. Just 1,000 times worse. I didn't really know what to say. I'd never imagined Noah would tell me all this stuff. Hell, I never would have imagined Noah even thought about this stuff. Don't get me wrong. I know Noah loves his family. He and Lee have always been really close too. When it came down to it, they've always been there for each other. But I would never have thought he'd be so sensitive about half of the stuff. My mom softened up a lot once I told her the lengths I'd gone to win your heart back. He smirked, although he ran a hand over his face, so I let it drop. He didn't want to talk about it anymore, so I changed the topic. I'm assuming you are going to be a Superman for our party next week. I mean, you've already got the underpants for it. I bit my lip when I saw the look he gave me, but he was clearly embarrassed. I opened my mouth, and he clasped a hand over my lips. Don't you dare. What? I tried to say, but his hand muffled it. You were going to say it's cute. I know you were. I laughed sheepishly. Actually, I had been about to say that... Whatever. So who are you going to go as? I think James Bond is a little overdone, don't you? He tweaked my nose. You'll just have to wait and see, Shelley. No, hold up. I have just had a stroke of genius. You should dress as a giant seashell. Oh yeah, that'd be a fantastic outfit. Totally doable. He just smiled rather than smirking. I couldn't keep the sarcastic glare on my face anymore. I grinned back and laughed along with him until we lapsed into silence. We sat like that, no talking, for a few moments, our thoughts elsewhere, before I spoke again. I wanted to tell him that he couldn't go to Harvard, and I could see him half waiting for me to say that, but I just couldn't. You really want to go, don't you? I told him quietly. I said quietly. I don't know why I bothered asking. I already knew what his answer was. He leaned forward and hooked his arms around his knees, looking out at the sky and the last few fireworks. I sat up too, crossing my legs underneath me and watching him. His expression was totally unreadable, his face in shadow. Then after a while he said, Yeah, I want to go. I don't want to leave you, though, he told me quietly, still looking ahead. After everything that's happened between us, and I just don't want to leave you, Elle. I don't want you to leave me either, I admitted, scooting over and holding his forearm with its strong, defined muscles, resting my head on his shoulder again. But you'd only regret it if you passed up the opportunity, and we both know it. Yeah, I know. He slid his arm around me. His hand traced circles on my lower back, and I felt my whole body relax at his touch. You have to go, I told him in a whisper. After a pause, he kissed my temple and left his lips pressed there, and he said, I love you. I love you too. Suddenly, I found myself laughing. What happened to the badass player? He fell in love, he told me, simply, planting a kiss on my cheek. Talk about a cliché.